I'm a big fan of libraries. I always have been a big fan of libraries. I grew up going to libraries a lot when I was a kid. Part of that was because my mom loved libraries. In fact, she volunteered in the library and worked in libraries for quite a number of years. Even when I got to college, I think that might have been why I worked as a reference librarian for several years during college. And that was in the days when the libraries were just beginning to transition from everything being printed on the shelves to everything being electronic. And so there were still a lot of things on the shelves. It was at least that kind of a day. How many of you would say you are a fan of libraries? Good. Whether you use them online or in person, I think it's good that you all like libraries, especially because that means you're going to be ready for 2 trivia questions about libraries. You can all do it. Library Journal is the leading publication for library-focused people. It's kind of the industry standard publication to talk about trends and publications and reviews and library science and all the things that are wrapped up in libraries. They publish statistics on what circulates at libraries. And so they publish some fascinating statistics, at least I think they're fascinating, about libraries each year and what tends to circulate and what trends are in libraries. So, first question. What category or genre of non-fiction books did people check out from libraries most last year? Here's just some hints of genres or categories that are out there. But what category of books do you think, print books, do you think people checked out the most last year? I mean, you can tell a friend, you can shout it out, there's no, what do you think? Humor. Cooking. Biography. Travel, vacation. All right. So in other words, we have no idea. Awesome. And the answer is?
Humor.
Biographies. Ron peaked. And what's interesting is that's an upset, because for the past 8 years before this, it was cookbooks. 8 years and biographies upset. Okay, next question. Since that was so much fun, next question. Now, look closely. What category or genre of nonfiction ebooks were most checked out last year?
Humor.
Don't peek. That's right. All right, what do you think? Ideas? Photography. Self-help. Yeah, I thought self-help. I totally thought it was self-help. All right, and the answer is?
Religion. Sorry.
It's biographies again. No, I'm serious. That's really it. Clearly, many people love biographies. I mean, I love biographies. I love reading about other people's lives. I mean, it's inspiring. I love hearing other people's stories. I think one of the things that I think is so good about biographies is that they're relatable. They're real. No matter how popular or amazing somebody may have been because of what they did, they're still a person. Just like any of us. And so to read a biography, I love being able to say, well, I can relate to that. Because, they're still a person, I'm still a person, but look at what they did. Or, look how God used that person. I mean, how amazing is it? I love biographies. The Bible is filled with biographies. Pretty much every part of the Bible is a biography of somebody. Certainly it's people related to their faith, but it's biographies about people. I mean, there are biographies about Moses, and there are biographies about David, and Solomon, and Ruth, and Esther, and Jeremiah. I mean, there are biographies everywhere. About Jesus, there are biographies. And then there are those books that are actually named after people. I mean, Isaiah, and Titus, and there are letters that people wrote to people. And there's so much biographical content in here about these people. Aside from Jesus, maybe the most popular biography is that of Peter. And of course, we get a lot of Peter biography in the Gospels, the stories about Jesus. But then Peter wrote a couple letters that are named 1st and 2nd Peter. But the main biography about Peter's life comes up in the first half of the book of Acts. Peter is the focus in the first half of the book of Acts. It's like he is the leader, the one that Jesus is using. He's the star of the show, it seems like, in the beginning of the book of Acts. And in his biography, in the first part of the book of Acts, it seems to show some things about the kind of people that God uses. You know, what is it that Peter and his life can teach us about the kind of people that God uses? So, overall, when we see Peter in the book of Acts, he really is like the star of the show. He really is the guy who seems to be the one that everybody goes to, the focus of every story, the thing that he's at the center of everything. Remember all at the beginning when the Holy Spirit came on all the people, and Peter was the one who made sense of it all. He's the one who spoke to people and said, no, it's not that, it's this. This is what God is doing. It's an amazing thing. And Peter had great results. I mean, he spoke this ringer of a message that really launched the church. Not long after that, Peter's still at the center of everything that's happening. He's at the center of speaking. He's at the center of being imprisoned. He's at the center of people attacking him. Even when he's asked and questioned about why he believes what he believes, he's still willing to stand up for what he believes in, even against the biggest of authorities of his day. Then there was that time with that couple, Ananias and Sapphira, who were withholding some money from the church. We looked at this a while ago. And Peter was the one who was arbitrating that whole decision and situation. And you remember what happened to that couple? They died. They ended up dead in Peter's presence. And people are probably like, who is this guy? I mean, this is Peter. Peter goes and heals a blind beggar in front of the temple. And there's this huge firestorm of reaction to that. Peter argues with the people who are the highest authorities. I mean, this is Peter. This is the guy. This is the guy who's on top. He's on fire. And he is the leader. And it seems like when we see all the things that Peter does, it seems to show that at the least, Peter is faithful. You know, he's faithful to God. He's faithful to the things that God has revealed to him. He's faithful to the things that he's learned. He is faithful with what he says he's going to do. You know, personally, it seems like Peter is faithful. Like when you and I will say, you know, I'm the kind of person who I do what I say. I'm faithful. Peter seems, at this point in his life, from every indication we can get from these stories, I mean, that he's faithful. He's faithful to God because of what God has done. He's also faithful to the mission that Jesus gave right at the beginning. Way back in the beginning of the book of Acts, we saw that Jesus gave this mission to basically go and tell more and more people about Jesus. That was their job. That was their mission. And that's exactly what Peter's doing. He's going throughout the world. He's kind of leading the charge to tell more and more people about Jesus. So he's faithful to that mission. Probably most challenging or most interesting is that he's also faithful even when things are tough. Because has he had some tough situations? Oh, hugely tough. I mean, he's brought into the courts of the highest authorities. He's argued and stood up to people and said, you tell me that and I'm going to say no to you. I mean, he is in their face. He is willing to go on the line with his faith and say what he believes. I mean, he is faithful even when things are extremely tough. So, Peter is faithful. Which I look at faithful and I think, you know, that's good. That's solid. But it's kind of what I expected. You know, Peter's faithful. What else is Peter? Because there's got to be more. And there is. So, let's get a little more specific. The final episode in Peter's biography gives a couple more indicators of things about him that help us in following Jesus. So while Peter is doing what we've just described, all these different things that he's been doing, there's this guy who's about a day's journey away. His name is Cornelius. He is a leader in the Roman army. So this guy has authority. This guy is Greek, serving in the Roman army. He is not Jewish. And that is the key to this story. He is not Jewish. He is Greek. Cornelius is about a day away, and Cornelius has a vision from God that he is supposed to go and find this guy, Peter, in this town. Cornelius believes in God. Cornelius is what they call a God-fearer. So he is a person who's not Jewish, but yet still believes in God. So he's sort of halfway in. You know, he's not part of the people of God, because they have to be from the right family. But he believes the same thing, so he's kind of like, I'm halfway. I'm not an outsider, but I'm not a total insider either. I'm sort of halfway grafted in. So this is Cornelius' kind of situation. And God comes to him and says, you need to go and find this guy, Peter, who's in this town. So he does. Cornelius follows through, and just as his servants arrive, it's about a day's journey, just as they arrive, here's what happens to Peter. Acts chapter 10. Peter has a vision from God. Here's what God showed him. He saw the sky open up, and something like a large sheet was let down by its four corners. In the sheet were all sorts of animals, reptiles and birds. Then a voice said to him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat them." "No, Lord," Peter declared, "I've never eaten anything that our Jewish laws have declared impure and unclean." But the voice spoke again. "Do not call something unclean if God has made it clean." The same vision was repeated 3 times. Then the sheet was suddenly pulled up to heaven. Peter was very perplexed. What could the vision mean? Meanwhile, as Peter was puzzling over the vision, the Holy Spirit said to him, 3 men have come looking for you. Get up, go downstairs, and go with them without hesitation. Don't worry, for I have sent them. And that's right when the people did show up. Right then when the vision was done. So what does Peter do? He goes with the people who come to find him. No questions asked. It's like God says go, and he goes ahead and he goes. Even though everything doesn't make total sense to him, he had this totally confusing vision that he's actually against, but he still goes ahead and goes. Peter is not just faithful. Peter's available. You know, he's available when God says to go do something. When God's doing something, Peter said, I'm here. When God asks, he said, I'm going to go. Peter goes. It's like here with Cornelius. All it takes is God saying, these people are going to show up and follow them. It's okay to go with them. And he's available. He goes. It's kind of like being on call. Have you ever been on call? Yeah, a lot of us have been on call for our jobs or for organizations. I've been on call too. When I was on call, the way we did is we traded it around several people. So one person took a week at a time, and we formed a month, and then we just rotated. So you took a week, a month. And when we did it, we had pagers. That was back when pagers were the thing. And we had a pager. Whenever the pager went off, you had to call in to find out what the problem was and what you had to do about it. When that pager went off, and you were on call, could you say no to the pager? No. You were not allowed. You were expected. I was expected to drop whatever I was doing and call in to find out what do I do, what do I need to do, who needs something. That's being available. No matter what else we're doing, we're available whenever something comes up. And Peter, he's available. And what I think is most amazing about his availability is it's especially when everything else is not perfect. Because he has this vision that it says he's perplexed by the vision. When things are not going right in our lives, is it easy to get up and just go and follow whatever God says to do or somebody says to do? I mean, no, when things are not right, we are apprehensive. We're withdrawn. We're reticent to go and do something. We're cautious about it. When things are all fitting together, yeah, it's a whole lot easier. But Peter didn't have it all worked out. He didn't have everything perfect. And yet he was still able to say, okay, even though I don't understand this and it doesn't make sense and I actually object to it, I'm still willing to follow what God is telling you to do. That's available. I mean, available even when everything doesn't match up. Let's go back to Peter's wild vision and how it all fits. So Peter has this vision about these animals, and it's totally against his faith rules. See, for him in his faith culture, in order to be around or to even eat certain animals, they had to go through all these different rituals and things to purify them and cleanse them in order to be able to be near them or eat them. And basically, it was hard work, it was laborious, it was tons of stuff to do, so that they would realize that it takes a lot of work for God to do the same thing so we can be with God. I mean, if they have to do all this work just to be in the presence of an animal or even to eat an animal, they're like, my goodness, this is a lot of work. Oh, I need to be cleansed, and it's a whole lot of work for God to do that so I can be in God's presence. So I mean, that's the whole point of this whole animal purity ritual kind of a thing. So Peter is going through this crisis of vision that he hears. This crisis of God says, no, it's all okay. All that stuff that you've learned your entire life that you think is perfectly fine, this is the way to do it. You have to cleanse the animal, you have to purify the animal, you have to do all these things according to the laws. All of a sudden, God is saying to him, no, the rules are changed. It's completely different than that. So this is what Peter's running up against. He's having this crisis of his conscience and his history and his roots. At the same time, we have the interruption of this Cornelius guy coming and visiting him. And the Cornelius guy, is the Cornelius guy Jewish? He's not an insider. He's not part of the people of God. So here's what Peter does. He goes to Cornelius' house, and here's what Peter realizes. You know, it is against our laws for a Jewish man to enter a Gentile home like this or to associate with you. But God has shown me that I should no longer think of anyone as impure or unclean. So I came without objection as soon as I was sent for. I mean, all of a sudden it's already fitting for Peter. He's already making the connection between, it's not just about an animal and eating food, it's about people and accepting different people. He's already made that connection. So Peter then takes another step. He says, I see very clearly that God shows no favoritism. In every nation, he accepts those who fear him and do what is right. This is the message of good news for the people of Israel, that there is peace with God through Jesus Christ, who is Lord of all. For Peter, I mean, this is bigger than big. This is huge for him. All the things that he's thought and grown up with and understood his whole life are now being totally changed. All the ways that he was operating before about who's in and who's out and how God works and who God loves, it's all being changed. And he's starting to try to figure this out and grapple with this. Peter's faithful and Peter's available, but Peter is also teachable. He's able to be taught, even when it's something big, even when it's something tough, even when it's something rooted in him that's so big. He's teachable. Up until the 1900s, the late 1900s, symphony orchestras around the world held auditions for musicians in a certain kind of way. They would have the players come in to the presence of the panel, the conductor of the symphony, and the auditioners would play, and the panel would hear them and they would judge them. In 1980, the Munich Symphony Orchestra held some auditions. They had an open position for a principal trombone player. And the Munich Symphony Orchestra is one of the world's premier symphonies. They're cutting edge. They are the model in a lot of ways for a lot of symphonies around the world. And in 1980, which is not that long ago, that's 39 years ago, I even remember 1980. It's not that long ago. In the Munich Symphony Orchestra, there were no women, and there were no people born outside Germany. They were all homegrown, they were all male, because that's just what had been done. That's what they believed. So, they held an audition for the principal trombone player. The problem was, they had to do the auditions differently. The reason they had to do them differently is because of one person who was auditioning. The conductor's son was a trombone player, and he was auditioning for his dad's orchestra. So they said, well, we can't have auditions done the same way. They said, we need to make these blind auditions. So they put up a screen between the judges and the auditioners, and there were 33 trombone players that came in for auditions for this position. The conductor was one of the people on the piano. And as they came in and played, they heard them, but of course did not see the trombone players. At one point, after a portion of the players, not all of the auditioners, but a portion of them had come in, the conductor stood up and he said, we're done. We found our trombone player. He said, that is exactly who we need. Of course, in his mind, he knew exactly who it was. It was his son. When everything was done, and they revealed who the player was, it was not his son. It was a Chinese woman, trombone player. Okay, is the guy teachable? Is the conductor teachable? Did he hire the woman? Yes, he hired her. But he did not give her the principal trombone position that she auditioned for. He gave her a second trombone position. It was like it was too much to overcome. You know, he could go part way, but that's too much. I mean, what happens when God changes the rules on us? Still, they're according to God's rules, but they're different than what we understand. I mean, are we teachable to the things that God is doing in and around us? Peter was. He was teachable to let God mold him to understand God's ways in a fresh way. May we be faithful to what God is doing. May we be available to the work of God around us, and may we be teachable to the things that God is freshly and newly bringing our way. Let's pray.